Hi, this video today is about a product called Adya Clarity. My name is Ian Clark. I was involved with this product starting back around 2009, and I met the people that own the company, Adya Inc., in 2008. And I was intrigued by their product. I was thinking about minerals in our diet and minerals in many different products that we could get to the people in the natural marketplace. And this was a thought-provoking one because there was supposed to be a study that showed that black mica had all of the elements that the human body is made from, and that there was a process whereby the black mica was extracted, the elements were extracted from black mica using a sulfuric acid patented process, and that was supposed to mimic the way that a plant pulls elements from the earth, so that if a plant is growing in the earth, it releases chemicals from its roots, it combines with the humic acid and the various effective microorganisms in the earth, and it goes through this amazing process whereby it absorbs minerals from the soil. And then we have a plant-based mineral that is inside the plant that we eat, and that is the most beneficial organic type of mineral, the plant-based mineral. So this process done by a company called Shimanishi Keikan was supposed to mimic that process perfectly. And so without a lot of thought about it and a lot of dialogue that was given to me, to not really have a chance to think about it at the depth that I would have liked to, I thought, well, there must be something to it because they've used it for 40 years in Japan. I was shown how that it could clear a pond of water, it could clear a tank of water, make it nice and clean looking. And so that was an impressive thing in itself. But what I didn't know is that all water treatment plants around the world use an element called aluminum sulfate to flocculate all of the solids or the colloids out of water and get them knocked out so that then they can put it through the next staging process of filtration and getting it ready to go back into the municipal water supply. So these are the things that have come to light now, and because I don't have a scientific background in the chemistry world, I have been counting on people to bring out the information that I think would be valid. And so this Adya Clarity product was presented to me as having been used in Japan for 40 years and very successfully. And I read an article that was a transcript of an interview by a doctor in Japan, and it sounded very good. And it talked about how important minerals are in our diet and how that they work with the enzymatic process, and how that sulfur-bound minerals or sulfate-bound minerals are also very good for human health. And so all of those things combined seemed to make sense that this would be a good product. And the other interesting thing about the product is that it was a very cost-effective product, and yet it could deliver a great deal of value to the person in the marketing literature, and it appeared that there would be a great benefit to everybody that could use it. So that being said, that leads to the today's situation where there's a huge amount of controversy about the product because of mislabeling, and when it was imported a certain way, and then there were many health claims made that were incorrect. And that caused confusion, it caused controversy, it caused people to be very upset. You can imagine people that are very careful with their diet, that will not eat at restaurants, that will not eat from the grocery store, that eat from their gardens as much as they can, are very careful with the water they drink, and very careful what they put in their skin, and really anything they're going to ingest they're very careful about. Well, that group of people was the one that was presented it to first, and that was not told to them that there was aluminum sulfate in the product. It said aluminum on the label in trace amounts, but it did not say the actual type of aluminum, and it did not say the content of aluminum on the bottle. Had it said those things on the bottle, the product would have never sold. But the people that knew, the people that understood this, were the people that owned Adya Inc., and they were very aware of the amount of aluminum sulfate in this solution, as we now found out. When I first questioned them about the aluminum content, where it said trace amounts of aluminum and so on, they said, well, that's a very beneficial type of aluminum. It's aluminum sulfate. It's very good for human health. And I said, is that right? So I didn't do a great deal of investigation to that myself. I should have at the time, but it was my mistake not to. So I basically was one of the first people to get taken advantage of. They promised me a lot of things. They said, if you bring this product to your health people that are listening to what you have to say, and you set up distributors, we'll honor you. You can sell that distributor network, and we will, honor that type of an agreement. And they had their own distributor network, and so I decided to, broadcast their brand instead of having a private label, and ended up in a situation where I did a lot of work and got a lot of momentum in the marketplace, and hooked up companies like the Raw Food World and Longevity Conference and the people there, and a lot of different other distributors that we set up that spun off from that, only to get 1 year down the road and have Adya Inc. declare that we have not done according to the agreement, and we're no longer allowed to sell the product. And they basically deleted everything that we did, but they took everything we did. And so when that happened, we realized we were dealing with some people that had very low ethics, and they didn't even discuss it with us. They just simply went behind our back and did it. We had to find out through third parties that this had even happened. So that was a great disappointment, and we felt very much taken advantage of. But as time went on, we tried to wind down that work that we did. We wanted to rebrand the product, but that was from September of 2010 until March of 2011. And at that time, we had just gained access to the raw material in Japan to be able to buy it directly. And we found out the extreme low cost of this product. And it was right at that moment that Fukushima hit. Well, when Fukushima hit, that was a catastrophic event, of course, and it caused all kinds of uproar. And then I found out that the plant that produces the Thimarox, which the Adya Clarity is made from the raw material, was only 30 miles from the Fukushima meltdown. So we just felt that was the final straw that broke the camel's back. That was the sign to move away from this product entirely and to never deal with it again, which is what we did. Now, we had a lot of stock left in inventory, but there was nothing we could do about that. We just said, well, just leave it there, and that's where it's going to sit. And we had no idea that 9 months down the road from there was going to be such a controversy over the product, because we still at that time believed it was a good product. I had a scientist in California contact me at the end of September, and they started asking me very pointed questions that I was not able to answer. I was able to answer general questions about the product that I thought I knew about, but it was very clear and very quickly apparent that I really didn't understand the dynamics of the elements or what was going on. There was a fear of fluoride poisoning, but my comment was that it was likely from the water people were drinking from the tap that had not drank tap water for a long time, with a claim that Adya Clarity would remove fluoride from the water if they drank it, but that's actually not the case. It does a conversion of the fluoride to a different type, but it also leaves fluoride in the water. So people are going to be getting a certain amount of fluoride in their bodies that they're not used to. So people were showing up with fluoride poisoning type symptoms. And then this one particular scientist was very upset with me that I had introduced it without double checking, and he felt that I was responsible to do some due diligence, gather more information, which I did. I supplied that information to them, and they started doing the analysis and discovered that there was a very large amount of aluminum sulfate in this solution. And on the bottle it said trace amounts, which means less than 1 part per million, according to chemical standards. So when the investigation was done and it turned up to be 1,220 parts per million, that was a very surprising factor, because on the bottle, iron sulfate was listed at around 1,340 parts per million, and then magnesium sulfate below that, I think at around 540. And then the aluminum sulfate was supposed to be right below iron, in between the iron and magnesium at 1,220, but it was not on the label at all. So that raised many more red flags. And all of the red flags that kept coming up with this company, from them trying to sue people unfairly, illegitimately, them putting up websites about people saying all kinds of negative things about them unfairly, dealing with myself on a business level in the most unfair manner possible, where I ended up spending around $45,000 of my own money to be able to promote their product, only to have them take all that work and not allow any nice reward for me on that work, and also then to say a lot of negative things about me to cover themselves for having made a very low integrity move in the business sense. So what ended up happening is, as I submitted this information and I broadcast it out to a few people that I felt were very important to know about this, the feedback came back to have an interview by various individuals, which I agreed to. And I simply said, look, all I have is this factual information. I can't provide really anything else. I have great questions in my mind about the integrity of the company, Adya Inc., but that's for people to determine for themselves. I said, I have my opinions, and of course my opinion isn't going to be very high when my business relationship with them was very poor. But I always thought the product was fine, and I thought Shuminichi Keiken was a good company, and since it had been used in Japan for so long, it should be safe and fine. Well, as it turns out, when further investigations were done, it was not a safe product, and it had not been proven to be a safe product. So people were being taken advantage of on a very large scale in the community that we deal with, which is the natural products community. That became extremely upsetting to many people. Well, one of the people that interviewed me, who has quite a bit of reach into the natural news world, interviewed the owner of Adya Inc., which I was quite nervous about because I felt that there was a great deal of risk involved in getting misinformation. But the information that the interviewer gathered from the owner of Adya Inc. was very good, solid information against the company. And then he proceeded to do further investigations and kept uncovering more and more and more discrepancies in the whole thing. So one of the other real problems that was with the product, it was being overcharged for extremely. This was one of our major exceptions with the company back in 2010 that caused a lot of discomfort between us on a business relationship because there are certain normal profit margins of markup for various products from cost to distributor to reseller to retail. And those policies or those guidelines were being violated at the highest level. And there was at that time 4,000% markup from the actual cost of the manufacturer to retail, which was obscene in my books, and it's embarrassing. So really what it does is it lends itself into the love of money or the greed factor with people. And I couldn't understand even the psychology behind it because, there were some reasons given like, well, it's a 500-day supply for a person to treat water, but that's for a 32-ounce bottle. The fact is, if you're using it in the bathtub, you're going to be using a couple ounces there. If you're doing super shots, you're going to go through it very quickly. And there was a great encouragement to do super shots by the owner of Adya, where he's telling people to do, 2 or 3 super shots a day, or 5 or 6 or 10, or even up to 20 super shots in a day on one video that he was shown talking about it. And so this leads to the fact that it would become excessively expensive to consume if it was being used to that degree. And the retail price should be anywhere between, say, $35 and maybe $59 at the tops. I mean, a very, very high-end price. But it was being charged for $200, and then they dropped it once the volume got up down to around $150. But that is an extremely excessive profit margin. So all these red flags that came up, they just kept coming up and coming up until it amounted to something where the public really needed to look at it and make their own judgment call. Now, obviously, we're not out to stop people from taking anybody's product. That's not the object of the matter in any case. If we were into that, we'd be trying to shut down pharmaceuticals, trying to stop toothpaste companies with fluoride and all the rest of it. That's not the interest, because the key is really people have it's their own business what they take. Really, nobody should be allowed to tell you what you can or cannot take, as far as if you feel that it's good for you. The point is you want to make sure that you know what's in that bottle, what's in that product. You need to know and understand the depth of what's in there, and it needs to be listed on the label. When there's any excessive amounts at all of something, it has to be on the label. So people would not have chosen to consume Adya Clarity at all had they known that the aluminum sulfate content was so high. Now, the product itself is normally used under the patent of Japan to treat water, whatever water you have, and then you take that treated water after it sits for many hours and you put it through a filter, a ceramic filter and an earth element filter that makes sure that that water is perfectly clean all the way through. And you don't get the aluminum sulfate, all that's filtered out, the iron sulfates, all those things are filtered out. And you end up with a very high quality water out of that ceramic filter. Now, that's a good way to do it, provided that the product you're using to, first of all, treat the water is very inexpensive, because there's so many ways to treat water. There's 1,000 different ways, and there's 1,000 different companies selling all kinds of water products and water filters and reverse osmosis and distillers, and they range in price from $100 to $3,000. It just depends on how far you want to go and how many things you want to treat the water with. And of course, there's the whole ionizer market, and there's a big controversy between acidic and alkaline, and really that's not of great interest to me either. I know the water that I enjoy, which is generally spring water or well water if it's a very good quality product. And I like to have it filtered. I like to make sure that it's clean. And, as far as mineralization and getting good sulfate-bound minerals, you can get it from your food. There's legumes, there's various green foods, there's raw dairy, there's eggs. There's various different things. Now, I'm not telling people that they should drink raw dairy and eat eggs. If they're raw vegans, that's their business and things like that. But I'm just saying in general, when you look at the food that's out there, I found raw dairy to be extremely beneficial to me. I found eggs to be extremely beneficial. I enjoy the cheeses. We have our own cows on our own farm, and so we make our own raw whey and the raw casein and the raw cream and the raw butter and the raw buttermilk, and we make a kefir as well with the milk that's left over after we take the cream off. There's so many different things you can do, but that's something that we enjoy. And of course, goat's milk is wonderful, and we have some very special goats accessible to us that we get this beautiful healing type milk from. It's just food. So there are many ways that we can get minerals into our system. There's different products from the ocean that deliver minerals from the ocean base, which is of course the most powerful, most compatible to our blood system. So all the need to run out and to bring in a dissolved rock from a foreign country and pretend that is actually the same as a plant-based mineral, that's just ludicrous to me. It may not be ludicrous to you. People can go out and they can drink as much of this product as they like, as their business. But we always suggest to people to do their own due diligence, check for safety standards. Look at the various articles that were cited in this, because there was that aluminum sulfate accidental infiltration into the actual municipal water supply. It was supposed to be put into a holding tank in the UK back in the late 80s. And the truck driver accidentally put it into the wrong tank and put it right into the drinking water supply. And there was a whole stream of leukemia, dementia, Alzheimer's, and all kinds of joint problems and various difficulties that people ended up with in a very short time from that. And so it's something that we all need to be careful with, because anytime you're taking anything into your system, you want to know what are the long-term residual effects, because when people turn 60 and 70 years old, they end up in a situation where their body is beginning to break down. And a lot of people die in their 60s and 70s, so we know that this is the case. Now, if somebody's a real health advocate and they watch everything, what they're eating and consuming, they're going to live 80, 90, 100, and they'll have a good quality of life. But the point is that there's nobody that has validated anything to us that these things, like if I'm taking a large amount of aluminum sulfate on a daily basis and super shots from a product like Adya Clarity, I don't know if in 17 years when I turn 70, if I'm going to have a problem with that in my brain function or, in the bone marrow. There's all kinds of various things that can come from that. So I'm not going to put myself at risk on this thing. And I really felt an obligation to let people know, because I was quite embarrassed that I had actually said anything about this product 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago now, and not having thoroughly checked it out. So that's something that all of us need to very much tune in and just bring the integrity levels up all the time. Every day that goes by, we should become more able to be sure of what we're saying, not less, and not more skilled at coercion techniques, but just get right back to the basics. And really the basics are whole foods. And so if you can get a whole food raw nutrient into your system, that is the key. All these other things that come along, especially when they start to say it's like a panacea and it fixes all these things and it does this and this and this and all these miraculous results, it's very, very reminiscent of these different multi-level marketing companies that have gone out of their way to have the people, based on the greed factor, say any number of things about the product to try to convince everybody to buy them as if it's going to fix everything. So we want to really avoid that kind of a thing. Validation is the key, and scientific validation is even deeper. Now, when you go into double-blind clinical, placebo-controlled, randomized studies, it's a whole other ballpark, and we're talking the pharmaceutical realm at that point. And we know that big pharma has purged little pharma just by the means of raising the bar so high that it would cost $100 million or $200 million to do a double-blind clinical, placebo-controlled, randomized study to prove validity of the product. But even the pharmaceutical companies, once they have developed and they are producing a product in the market, they have to disclose absolutely everything in that medicine. And they also not only have to disclose the what's in that medicine, there's a whole list of things in that article that's attached to that drug that you're buying from the drugstore, telling you all the side effects. So they go to the nth degree to make sure that they say what's going on, and they tell you this is what, and there are multiple side effects from taking pharmaceuticals. Well, people take them all day long by the billions in this world. So that is their business again. We're not out to stop that. We certainly encourage people to try to have their health maintained and improved through lots of sunshine, good exercise, good food, organic as much as possible, eat local as much as possible, make sure that they're consuming supplements that are filling nutritional gaps, make sure their water is right, make sure they're hydrated, and make sure that they have a good disposition about them as well, because that helps in their relationships. It keeps the stress down. So stress is the real problem right in this age, and you don't want to have any stressors coming in. And I really feel strongly that high amounts of aluminum sulfate and high amounts of iron sulfate are not good, and they are bringing in stressors into your system unnecessarily. You just don't need this infiltration of this type of a thing. So that's my opinion. And so we have just basically tried as hard as we could to wash ourselves clean from this whole controversy, because it is distracting, it's time consuming, and it's energy draining. And we feel very badly for the people who had opened their businesses up to us. We did it ourselves. We felt very badly after this was revealed. We felt very badly the way that we were treated as a business to start with, but that became secondary and irrelevant when it comes down to a real product integrity and a company that is so misrepresenting and so taking advantage of people, way overcharging for a product, way overstating the product, and then understating what's in the product. So these are the issues that we see, and I apologize for any of my involvement that was in here, anybody that was affected by that. It's a fortunate thing for us that we only sold a small amount of the product when I was unceremoniously exited out of the situation. And then as time went on, all these things started developing and it really exploded in the marketplace. So there was a lot of embarrassment, a lot of humiliation by the people that jumped on board with it. And there's going to be still people that are going to be promoting the product, which is their business as well, because we're not telling somebody what they should or should not do in their business. But just so long as they let the people know exactly what it's for. Now, as far as I am concerned, a product like Adya Clarity, or whatever you want to call it, there's black mica extract and there's various things. Anybody can make the product. It's just a matter of getting the raw material and diluting it in water or not. And you can make it a stronger concentration. But really what it is a water treatment product, so that in an emergency situation, you can use that to treat water that you may have to get out of pond scum. You may have to get it from a ditch. You don't know really what situation you may be ending up in. It's highly unlikely, but it is possible. And so having something there by you that you could add to water and be sure that it's nice and clean, and make sure you got a filter close by. And if you don't, you let all the sediment filter out and just drink it only as long as you have to stay alive. You would be under that kind of a situation. So it does have merit in that regard. There are other products in the market that do the same thing. I don't think they work as well as the Themerox does, but that product is something that is handy to have around, and we'll keep some. We're going to keep a bottle of it in our house. We have more than a few bottles of it, so it's just something that we're going to have around just in case, but we're never going to consume it unless it was a life and death situation. So that's really where we stand with this, and I just wanted to make sure that the balance from my end was brought out, because people really felt there were a lot of vendettas flying around, a lot of things that were done as like a smear campaign and things like that. This is the farthest thing from a smear campaign. The people who smeared Adya Inc. and Adya Clarity are the owners of Adya Inc. themselves by being extremely volatile, by going out and saying all kinds of outlandish things on film and really exploiting the people and taking advantage of people. So that's where the smear came from within their own ranks. And we just see that the people that have consumed a lot of this stuff for a very long period of time are unstable mentally. They do make crazy claims. They do act very strange at times. And so we feel sorry for that, and that has happened, because I know that they believe what they're doing is correct. But these kind of things never work out. So we just want to sow good seeds, reap a nice harvest every time we do. And so that's about all I had to say for today. And if there's any questions, people can always call me and ask me about this further, because there's a lot more things that can be discussed. But really, we've spent and lost a lot of time on this product and on this involvement with Adya Inc. And we thought we were done with that in March of 2011, only to find out that it was going to be another couple of months of our time to deal with this situation and to dig down and get the actual validated facts. So thank you for your time today, and I hope this video helps you. And like I say, if you have any questions, you can always contact us through activationproducts.com, and we can talk more about it. Thank you so much.